is Hard Parking, sponsored by Wright Honda and Wright Toyota out of Scottsdale, Arizona. Of course, I'm your host, Jhae Pfenning, recording from my home studio in Gilbert, Arizona. I want to clear something up. On the previous episode where I was talking about going out to eat when you're invited to dinner during auction week and you can't say no because you can't. When I went back and listened to it, because I do listen to my own podcasts, I do it to become a better podcaster. It's the same deal. So if I send you a voice message, whether it's on iMessage, whether it's on Telegram, whether it's on Instagram, Facebook, I send the message and then I go back and immediately listen to the message that I sent. And I do that to make sure I didn't say something screwy or weird. It's no different than when you text message someone, you read it and you're like, oops, I meant to say this, or I meant to say that, or oops, spell check. So anyway, going back and listening to that part, to me, and no one said this, but you may have said this to yourself, but to me, it sounded as if I was saying, hey, if somebody wants to pay, I'm down, as in AKA freeloader. But I'll say this, I never accept a dinner invite without fully intending to go and pay for myself and or my wife 100% of the time. In those instances, I didn't know for a fact that Jason Day and those guys were going to pick up the tab, but that's an opportunity you never want to skip out on. And it has nothing to do with what you're eating and where you're going. It's just about the networking ability, the camaraderie, the opportunity to get to know someone beyond just, hey man, how you doing? Good. Okay, cool. And it's the same deal when I went out with my buddy Michael. Where are you guys going? To the bistro. Okay, cool. Looked at the menu. I would order this. I'm going to order this drink. No idea that somebody else was going to end up paying for it. So I'm definitely not a freeloader. So as you guys know, I'm super busy. And my wife wants to build this table. A little bit more after this word from 4 Wheel Online. For over a decade, 4 Wheel Online has been bringing the best truck accessories and truck parts to enhance the appearance and performance of all trucks and SUVs. They are dedicated to providing an extensive range of upgrades that will match any maker model on the road. The truck products cover everything to give your truck a custom look and added functionality. Need a wheel and tire package? Head over and use the configuration tool. They carry all the major brands of wheels and tires, so go get outfitted today. Visit them online at 4 Wheel Online. So you guys know I'm super busy. I'm so busy that I feel bad that I can't do other things. So the other night, instead of working, I decided to stop working. And I went downstairs and I watched the first 2 episodes of Reacher Season 2 with my wife. It's been months since we've watched anything together because I'm just so damn busy trying to do this podcast, working on my second YouTube channel, which takes up a lot of my time. Or, we'll have someone who invites us to go out, which happened the other night. But something really cool happened to me last week. Coming off of the Barrett Jackson episode, I'm hanging out with Matt DeAndrea, Matt the moderator. He's been on here before. And I'm asking myself, as I'm listening to his podcast, he had Craig Jackson on there, which is, Barrett Jackson, Craig Jackson. I was asking myself, at what point do I get to that part in my relationship with Matt? At what point would I ever have the opportunity to be a guest on CarCast? CarCast show was started by Adam Carolla and Matt DeAndrea. And these days, it's always Matt and Bill Goldberg, the former wrestler, or Matt and a guy named Alistair Weaver of Edmond. And I listen to that podcast. I don't listen to it all the time, but I do listen to it. And that's the only car podcast I ever listen to. So I was asking myself, what would it take for me to get to that level, for me to be a guest on that show? Because that show, according to listennotes.com, is in the 0.1% of all podcasts, not just automotive, all podcasts. The top 10th percentile of 1%. I'm in 2%. 2% is great. This is based on 3.2 million podcasts. And some of you have heard this before if you listen to the Patreon, but some of you aren't part of the Patreon. So I'm telling you this. And so I was asking myself that. A couple days later, I'm talking to a good friend of mine that I'm hiring to do all the media for NS Expo. And, she was responsible for me being the co-MC at Future Collector Car Show the first year. The second year, she's responsible for bringing me back and getting me paid to do the Future Collector Car Show co-MCing. So I was talking to her because she's a one-stop shop. She can do anything. And we were talking about all the projects that I have going, whether it's my t-shirt, my small t-shirt company I don't advertise, this podcast, YouTube 1, YouTube 2, One Auto Movement. Thank God I have Edgar that helps me plan everything, but I have One Auto Movement, which I'm the founder and CEO of. I'm the president of the NSX Club of America, and I'm trying to completely overhaul that club. Between all those things, plus local car events, plus family time and vacation, and something's got to give. But she says, you look like you're on the up and up. Good things are finally starting to happen for you. And she was right. A day later, I get a text message from Matt DeAndrea. Jay, what's your schedule look like today? Would you like to come on the podcast? I'm thinking to myself, holy crap. Just a few days ago, I was asking myself, what would it take for me to get to that point? And not only was I on the podcast, but Bill Goldberg canceled because he had a family emergency. And so I was the co-host. So if you guys go back and you listen to the CarCast show where they're talking about the RM and Barrett Jackson recap, I'm on there. And my name will be forever associated with that episode. Adam Carolla, Bill Goldberg, Matt DeAndrea. Those are the three big names. But in at least one episode, you see Jhae Pfenning. And I had Coy Sinclair, which you guys haven't heard that name in a long time. Do you guys remember the Horsepower Hour podcast? I've had them on here, Andy and Coy. And that was actually a really good car podcast too. And like myself, they're grassroots. But I think that podcast fell apart when Andy moved to Florida because I've tried to reach out to him. I haven't heard from him. But Coy sent me a message on Facebook. And he said he's a little jealous that I got to do CarCast, but he was really proud and happy for me. And the thing is, I appreciated that because Coy understands exactly how big of a deal that was. Like, that was a huge opportunity to be on that podcast as a co-host. That is a checklist item. And so I don't know if I'm ever going to be on there again, but if not, it's definitely something to hang my hat on and be pretty excited about. I started this whole thing about me being busy. So we have people coming into town next weekend. And then the following weekend, we have people here all weekend too. And so I'm trying to catch up on all the media. I'm trying to get ahead of the media. And then we're going out of the country in a month and a half or 2 months for like 3 weeks. But she wants tables and chairs. And she wants to pretty much, in my opinion, fully furnish the backyard. But she doesn't want to buy it now. She wants to make it. It's like, I don't have any effing time to make this fucking table that it's funny that I said effing and then I said fucking, but I don't have any time to make this freaking table. She says, well, I'm going to make the table. And so myself and my daughter laughed at her because, you can't make a table. You can barely carry the wood. Now, my wife's not weak, but dimensional lumber, 2 by 10 by 8 foot long. You get 4 of those boards, which is what she wants. That's heavy. Even when you're doing one at a time, that's heavy. So we went to the Home Depot, and I'm telling her, I'm like, hey, this is not furniture grade wood. Yeah, so what's that mean? Well, what it means is it's going to be difficult to find 4 perfectly straight boards of wood that aren't bowed, that aren't knotted to shit in order to even start this. So I spent 25, 30 minutes going through all the wood, trying to find 4 perfectly nice, or as nice as you're going to get from Home Depot, because not every Home Depot carries the same thing. They carry regional stuff, but they do not carry furniture grade wood. You have to go to like a lumber yard or a specialty place, and you're going to pay premium. We ended up paying $20 a piece, so that's $80. And then I bought a couple 2x4s to rip in half and use as like the underframe to join the pieces together. So essentially what we're making is a glorified picnic table. We have metal legs that she bought off Amazon. We have 4 of the 2 by 10 by 8 foot boards. So it's 40 inches wide and 8 feet long. So she's working on that. But it's frustrating because when I try to tell her, hey, this is not furniture grade wood. She's always so annoyed with me. She just shuts me off, rolls her eyes, because she watches these stupid videos on TikTok or Pinterest or Instagram that last 60 seconds. And she's like, look, they made it. They got all their stuff from Home Depot. You can do it too. I can do it too. I'm like, I tell her, there's more to it than these stupid videos tell you in 60 seconds. Do you have the right screws? Do you have the right wood? Do you have this? Do you have that? They don't tell you to pre-drill the hole before you put the screw in. Fortunately, I had an extra box of deck screws, so I had the right screws on board. I knew to drill a hole so we don't split the wood and ruin the damn wood. But it's kind of like I know better. So if I'm telling you something, chances are I understand what I'm talking about, because while she's watching TikTok and Instagram and Pinterest, I'm looking up videos on YouTube on how to make tables. What kind of wood should you buy? What kind of wood shouldn't you buy? Like, I've done all that research just to understand for one day when my wife screws me over and makes me make some shit. Anyway, the table will be done here in the next couple of days. So once I assembled the main part of the table, then my wife's, she's doing all the sanding. And I go, well, here's a palm sander. Start with 80 grit and move to 120 if you want. But at bare minimum, start with 80 grit. Do the top, do the sides, the edges, do the underneath. Because you can't just stain and seal the top part of a wood table that's going to be sitting outside. You have to do it all or not do any of it. So we have more house stuff. The other day I get a letter in the mail. You guys, I think I've had issues with my HOA. I don't talk about it often. It seems like I get a letter from them every 60 days about something with my yard, and then they fine me $75, and everybody else has the same shit in their yard. And so I bark back. I'm sorry. I get on the email, and I think about it, and then I send like a nasty, mean, fuck you email pretty much. And so the same guy, the general manager, it could be a female, named Brooke Sorter or something, sends us this nice, beautiful letter. And the letter says, actually I have it right here. You guys hear the ASMR sound of the paper. The violation. Please submit for approval before painting your home. Please use the approved color scheme. Body may only... No, this is going to sound really... I'm going to read it to you guys exactly what it says because somebody can't fucking type. Body may be painted the body color. Garage may be. Not maybe, but maybe, because there's one word in this instance. The garage may be painted only body or popular color, and face should only be painted fascia, her paint. So basically they're saying we painted our house without getting approval. Let me tell you guys something. August of 2022, I have, because I keep everything, an approval letter from our HOA approving the color scheme that they tell us that we can pick from. So I logged onto their website because it's like, log on to their website. Let's see how much money we owe them. Log on to their website, and it shows their letter to me, but it doesn't show my approval in history. In fact, none of my letters in history are there. And so it seems like they can't get their shit together. But here's the deal, guys. 18 months later, because the thing was dated January 30th of 2024. So 5 days ago, as of this recording. 5 days ago, as of this recording, or 18 months after we painted our house, you send me a letter that says, please get approval before painting your house. You have 14 days to correct this. Like, hold up. So we didn't just paint our house last week and you're trying to be an asshole. So for 18 months, 4.5 or 5 fines for my front yard and my weeds later, you just decide that our house isn't the right color. So I bark back a little bit, I go, oh, that's funny. 2 houses down, one way. 2 houses down, the other way. The last house across the street, further down the block. Because it sounds like they're mad because we painted our garage door the color of our trim. So you can paint your garage door the color of the body of your house, or the fascia, which I consider the trim. Regardless, those 3 houses, their garage door is the same color as their trim. So, and then, before we did this, my wife and I, we drove around we live in it's a subdivision called Greenfield Lakes. It's actually pretty big. It's spread across multiple neighborhoods and several major streets. So we drove across the major street, and we drove through all there, and we saw so many paint schemes that are not on the approval form. So maybe they're grandfathered in. I don't know. We saw ones that we would have loved to have painted our house, but it's not on our approval sheet. And so my note to these stupid HOA is, and I don't know if anybody listening knows anything about this, and I know it's different from state to state, but I'm going to reach out to my attorney friend and see if he has any attorney friends that deal with this. Because look, if you tell me my weeds are screwed up, chances are my weeds are screwed up, and that's on me. But if you keep sending me that notice, you better have a track record of sending that notice to everybody else whose weeds are out of whack. And specifically to this one, everybody else who's not in the correct color per your guidelines, even though you're an idiot and you guys approved it already, so I feel like you can't say anything about it. You better show me, you better prove. It's their burden of proof, in my opinion. If you're going to continuously fine and harass somebody, then you better prove that I'm not the only one. I want to see dozens of these letters, or I'm going to sue them. Here's the deal. So I started researching, right? And in Arizona, we can file a complaint formally with the state against our HOA. But here's the kicker. It's $400 a complaint. At a $75 fine, each time I get dinged, you're paying 5 fines before you exceeded the price of 1 complaint. It's like they're in cahoots with the HOAs. It's like, if you want to complain on your HOA, you're going to pay out the wazoo. Here's why $400 is absolutely ridiculous. Because to form an LLC in the state of Arizona, it costs like $120, $130. And that's if you want the expedited filing fee or processing fee. So for less than $150, you can open an LLC in Arizona with the Arizona Corporate Commission, but you can't file a claim against your HOA for harassment for less than $400. Somebody make it make sense. So as usual, I'm recording this on a Sunday night. I would imagine tomorrow I will hear back from the HOA. And they're probably going to be nasty, and we're probably getting this big fight. But here's my theory. My theory is they keep messing with me because A, I clap back, but I have these little ramps in front of my driveway because my wife won't let me pour a new driveway. And there's a popular brand out there called Bridget. These aren't Bridgets, but what they are is they're designed for the driveways that have the rolled curbs like we have, the extreme hill. So they fit right in the middle. They allow water to go through, and then you can drive on and pull out of your driveway without such a sharp, incline at the bottom of your driveway. I'm sure somebody hates my little ramps, and so they complain to the HOA. They probably say, "Can't you guys get rid of that? It's so ugly. It's so hideous." Like, I don't know. I can only assume. But here's the deal. The street belongs to the city. So the HOA can't do anything, nothing about my little ramps. Now, they could complain to the city, and the city could say, "Tough titty, suck it up. We got bigger things to worry about." Is it causing an obstruction? No. Is it a hazard? No. Why? Because it is designed exactly to be used how I'm using it. And so if they can't complain on that, they're finding other dumb shit to complain about. But if you're going to fine me for my lawn looking like crap. Don't threaten to fine me for a house that is painted a color that you approved. So somebody make it make sense. Anyway, coming up on this show, I'm going to be talking to Wes Tankersley. You guys know Wes Tankersley, my partner in crime for One Drink Wednesday. He had said something the other day, and I said, hold that for the podcast. I want to talk to you about it because it's something we can all identify with. Every single person has been in this position at some point in their life, or you will be in this position. And it's a personal, like, confidence experience thing. It has nothing to do with cars. That's coming up in a few minutes. But before I do that, you guys know I've been seeing a massage therapist now for probably 6 months. The first time I did it, it was really weird because I don't like people touching me. But I was so sick of this pain in my neck, in my backs, always. Well, I got one back, but all the pain in my back, in my neck, I would, we've gone through a bunch of pillows, and I would do almost anything to figure this shit out. So I've been going to the same therapist, and she actually referred me to a different therapist who specializes in pressure points. I call it massage therapy versus just getting a nice massage where they relax your muscles and you feel like you feel good for about 30 minutes and then you don't feel good anymore. But when I went to go see this woman this time, like, she's really good. Real good. Former corrections officer. Like, she's really good. But she told me she could tell I don't drink any water. Now, my friend Wes, the same Wes that's coming up, says, Jay, all you do is drink coffee and booze. And for the most part, he's right. Now I drink carbonated water all the time. I may drink 3 of them a day. I may drink 1 a day. I may drink 1 every 3 days. But I typically don't go to our sparkless machine and just pour water. Maybe once in a while I do it. But she says, my massage therapist, a big reason why my muscles are as bad as they are in my back and my neck is because I don't drink enough water. And so I'm taking that Pepsi challenge. I'm supposed to drink half my weight in water in ounces. So what does that mean? So I weigh 212 pounds. So I should be drinking 106 ounces of water a day. So that's almost 2 gallons of water, which I'm never going to, no. But I could probably easily drink at least a gallon of water a day. My average coffee cup, what is it, a 10-ounce coffee cup? Because they said you shouldn't drink coffee first thing in the morning. According to nutritionalists, aka my wife, reading about nutritionalists, they say the worst thing you can do is drink coffee first thing in the morning because, caffeine dehydrates you, which makes sense. My mother-in-law always suffers from shit like that. She's always cramping up and tight, and all she drinks is coffee. But she drinks a lot of water, though, too. She got some medical issues and, some, I call it mental issues. But so I'm dedicated to drinking more water because, like I said, I would do anything to clear up the neck pain, the tightness of my neck and my shoulders, which I've always had. Like, I can't remember a time where I haven't had that. But as I get older, it becomes more important. So really looking forward to seeing what happens as I continue to drink more water. Anyway, coming up after this word from Full Online, Wes Tankersley. Wes Tankersley, welcome back to Hard Parking. Great friend of mine, co-host on One Drink Wednesday. I still get people that say, man, I checked out your guys' podcast. I tuned in on Wednesdays. It's hilarious. You guys are great. I can't wait to tune in again. And of course, at that point I say what?
Get the fuck out. It's not a podcast.
Yeah, I don't tell him to get the fuck out, but I said, yeah. Well, see, the thing is, it's not a podcast. It's Instagram Live. So, he's got Shape of Success and Hard Parking. But, you had said something to me the other day, and I said, let's save it for the podcast because I think it's very important. Because everybody listening to this can identify with this on some level, have been there or continue to be there, or will eventually be at that point because it's kind of a big deal. So you recently took a trip to Texas to see one of your buddies that you hadn't seen in a long time.
Right.
You guys were out having dinner, and tell the listeners what transpired, and we'll psychoanalyze and go from there.
Well, we went to this restaurant, and I'm sitting there looking at this menu. I'm like, what the hell is the deal? And it's like, here's a steak for like $65, and then they had Wagyu on there too, and it was like $35 an ounce and a 4-ounce minimum. And I'm like, how in the hell did I end up here? Like, there's no way I can afford this. This is not where I belong. This is not me. Like, I grew up in a house where every Friday my mom went and got it was Papa Murphy's. It used to be Papa Aldo's in Ontario, Oregon before it became Papa Murphy's. And every Friday it was like, oh, it's payday. Thursday. She'd go, payday tomorrow. So if I write a check on Thursday, then Friday it'll cash and we can have pizza on Thursday night. So we would have pizza every Thursday night. It's like, living paycheck to paycheck, right? And it's just weird to me to have to sit there and think that I can be sitting in the same room as this person who's going to pay for my meal and like be worried about it being so expensive because I can't afford that myself.
Yeah, and it's one of those weird deals where you can afford it. You just don't find yourselves in those situations very often. And I think it's part of the success arc, right? Because I mean, you guys just built a beautiful house. You know, you're killing it. You know, at your job. You know, you're very entrepreneurial in your approach, and your podcast is Shaping Success. And you're the guy. I said that to you because I still hit you with stuff like that all the time myself. Hell, we just got done talking about something, you know. So we sit there and push each other because that's what people like us do, you know, up and to the right. And you would tell me, you if I would have brought that to you, you would have said something like, "Well, Jay, that's part of, you know, success, and you do belong there. You know, you have to rise above it, and that's what success looks like when you look up one day and you're kind of surrounded by those people." You know, I had some kind of a similar thing on this most recent episode about going out to dinner with, you know, auction people are in town. There's people around me who own businesses, you know, for years, like major FU money. And sometimes I actually have that myself where they're like, well, what do you do? Well, I'm in healthcare IT. I'm basically a frontline overpaid consultant, you know, because sometimes I feel like that's kind of what I am. And I'm sitting around all these guys. And so I feel sometimes like I don't belong in that table, yet there I am, right? I don't belong at the Stellantis Alfa Romeo party, yet there I am. And so I do belong and you do belong. But what do you think that it's a mindset thing, right?
Yeah, I mean, I think it has a lot to do with like your upbringing. It's like, I think you're kind of the same way. It's like your parents didn't have a ton of money and it wasn't like, hey, you can just go out and just do whatever you want. Oh, I need a new baseball bat. Like my mom would have to, and a baseball bat was now like $400 or $500 bat. Now it's like, it was $100 at the time. And it was like, my mom would have to like scrap and save to get enough money for me to get this baseball bat. And everyone else's parents are just like, here you go. And it just doesn't make sense to me. So like when you're trying to teach your kids the same thing, it's like, I do make pretty decent money, but I still live within that. It's like, what if I didn't have that money? You know, like, I don't know. It's just weird. I really think it's just growing up without, and then realizing that you have it. And then, I don't know. It's just a mind bender, you know, I guess.
For us, we were middle class, you know. I don't think we were lower middle class. We sure as hell weren't upper middle class, you know, and we always, like, we never had to worry about our next meal. As far as I know, my parents did such a great job at shielding us from any real drama. It amazes me as an adult, trying to be a responsible adult, what little I knew about what my parents were going through. If they were going through anything, again, I don't freaking know.
Right.
But, you know, my mother was the type that might take us to Goodwill to buy clothes, but my dad would, if I said I needed a new easel, I don't know if I said it right, if I needed new Prismacolors, Prisma markers, would take me to Michael's, the semi-expensive craft store, and what do you need? You know, so we always had that. And then my dad, we would go out to eat sometimes as a family, and we would go to the fancy places, Steak and Ale, Red Lobster. That was fancy to us.
Right.
You know, and it's not garbage by any sense. I mean, Steak and Ale, rest in peace. I think they're all gone by now. So there was those times where we had the nice meals. But I guess for me, you know, being a consultant in what I do, as you know, I get paid pretty good for what I do, as do you. And so, you know, I think probably the first time I started traveling and going out and eat with the other consultants, I probably had that exact same feeling. Like, holy crap, this is a $55 filet, $55 for a 7-ounce steak. Holy crap. And now that's just what I order. So I think you just get so used to it over time. But I thought it was cool that you brought it up, because I go, let's talk about that on the podcast, because everybody experiences that. And it's okay, right? Because when people say, where's your favorite place to eat? There's two responses to the response. So someone says, I love going to Logan Steakhouse. I love taking my family there. Nothing wrong with Logan Steakhouse. You know, it's not Mastro's City Hall or Mastro's Ocean Club. It's not $75 a steak, but it's still good steak. So the reaction is some people say, oh, please, Logan's, get out of here. And the other person says there's nothing wrong with Logan's. So.
Yeah, and it's funny because I usually like I don't ever get steak, like go out to go have steak because I'm like I usually think, oh, I can cook it better. And that's what I was saying. I'm sitting here, I'm like, yeah, I don't normally have steak because I make it better. This time, not so much. It was like, man, this was a pretty damn good steak. I was really surprised at how good it was. But usually I don't order it from somewhere because I'm just not, it's not that. It's like I don't think it's that good to pay that amount of money for it.
Yeah, and there's a difference too. Like I can order steak from 10 different places and it could be good 10 different times, but one of those times it might be really fucking good.
Yeah.
And the other time it might be good, like if I made it at home. And so, how dry aged, wet aged, how long has it been done, all that good stuff. But, I guess the important part is, if you're ever in that situation, you do belong there. And if you're at a corporate dinner and somebody else is paying for it, well, you better order away.
Yep. I mean, someone got me there, right? And who's that someone? It's me. How did I end up at that? Yeah, and we talked about that too. But I ended up at that table, so I obviously did something right. And the etiquette, like you were talking about, that's what I was looking at. Like, okay, here's the most expensive thing, right? And here's something kind of in between. And then I kind of listened to what people were having and just kind of pick something in between instead of picking the most expensive thing. Like I was saying, there was $35 an ounce for the 4 ounce minimum for just the Wagyu steak. And so I got this other, they called it Texas Wagyu, which I'm like, all right, whatever. But it was really good.
Yeah, I think I've never ordered Wagyu because I could never justify it. At some point I will, but I think regular A5 Wagyu at some of the higher end steakhouses might be $55, $65 an ounce. With a minimum order of 5 ounces. Let's see here. Wes and I are having some audio difficulties. I want to thank Wes Tankersley for joining the show. Again, Wes can be found at Shaping Success, which is his podcast. He does a really good one in the mornings called Morning Coffee, where he kind of gets on super early and talks about his day. It's like a micronized version of Shaping Success, but it's more him. Because a lot of times Shaping Success is he's trying to motivate and inspire people and he has guests on and they do their whole thing. But, his morning coffee is more not only him, which may not be interesting to you, the subject, because you don't know who he is, but you can identify with the things that he's going through and the things that he's thinking. And that's it right there. Is you find that connectivity, you find that basis of identifying with someone else. I mean, just like we just talked about before we got cut off, unfortunately, with a bad Zoom connection. But the whole point of that was we all kind of experience those things in our lives. Like the first time it's like, wow, imagine being an athlete and, you hear football players and basketball players say this all the time and baseball players. The first time you step on that big field, you're just so in awe. It's like everything you've ever worked for in life has got you to that point, and it takes a while to get used to it. And it's the same deal. The first time you eat at a fancy restaurant, you're just like, wow, look at these prices. This is crazy. I can't afford this, even if you can. It's just a mindset thing. When I was working in Chicago, we used to try to set policy. And eventually when I left, the team set policy. Policy was expenses. Our expense policy was literally within reason is what it said. Within reason, not you can spend $60 a day on food, $100 a day on food. It literally said within reason because Chicago is in such flux, depending on what's going on in Chicago. The food usually doesn't cost more, but the Ubers, the hotels, the flights can certainly cost a lot more depending on what's going on in town. So we'd go to all these steakhouses and these places, and we went to a place, I think it's called Chicago Chop or Chop Chicago. And one night I had a bone-in tomahawk. Yeah. Bone-in tomahawk and 3 martinis later with blue cheese stuffed olives. And my personal bill was over $200, which is the most I've ever spent at that time on just myself. I say on that time because on another contract, a few years later, we went to this omakase sushi place in New York City. And that was more for just me. But, you know, you get used to spending the money if you make the money. Because I'm not going to, and I mentioned Texas Roadhouse. If I'm with the family and they want to go to Texas Roadhouse, we're going to go to Texas Roadhouse. We're going to order their food. It's going to be good. It's not going to be the same quality, but it's going to be good. So that's all that matters. But if it's just me, or if I feel like, you know, hey, wife, let's go out and have a nice steak dinner, we're probably going to go to Bourbon and Bones, which is a little overpriced, but it's a good experience. They got great bourbon. They got great steaks, but it costs significantly more than Logan's or Texas Roadhouse. But you get used to doing it, so. But that conversation was sponsored by The Cell Shop, as you guys know, an Arizona-based retailer that strives to be your destination for choice for wireless services. Available in Arizona, Washington State, California, Texas, and Florida. They're an authorized AT&T dealer, so visit them at cellshop.us and get connected today. Actually, I need to go buy the one that's local. They said, Jay, we want to sponsor you again for 2024, but you have to come by the shop. Hell, that makes me feel like a celebrity. You're damn right. Should I bring a Sharpie? Can I sign people's t-shirts? Want to thank Wright Honda and Wright Toyota, 4online.com, the aforementioned Cell Shop Wireless Services, as well as AutoCannon, officially licensed Honda and Acura gear. You can see me wearing it on my Instagram. Also, Patreon Business Supporter, Automotive Specialty Tool out of Owings Mills, Maryland, Quick Automotive out of Winter Garden, Florida, Pell Construction out of Caledonia, Michigan, Big House Small Home Design out of Ashburn, Virginia, and Traverse City, Michigan, and Shaping Success with our own Wes Tankersley out of Boise, Idaho. If you own a business and you're looking to write something off and you want to support the show, I think it's like $10 a month. Go to the Patreon and sign up as a business supporter, and you get your shout out at the end of every episode. And you get to write that money off as a business expense, advertising, marketing, whatever you want to call it. And it helps you with your taxes. It's not a big write-off. I can charge you more if you want. Otherwise, if you're in a position to help the podcast upgrade as a normal person, you can join the Patreon for as little as free. It used to be $3, but now you can join for free. And some stuff I give to you, audio and video. Some stuff I reserve for the paying members. But those who pay get access to show swag. Thank you, Mark Stoneman, Catherine Cox, Eddie Ramos, Richard Graves, Byron Jones, Bo Jung, Oscar Drew Bunkley, and Yasu Chiba, chilling over there in Japan. Questions, comments, or concerns, hardparkingpodcast@gmail.com. Follow me on Instagram at Pfenning. Join the Hard Parking Violations Facebook group. Join the Hard Parking channel on my Instagram. Because I can't grow without you telling the world how great the show is. Let's do this. Let's grow this thing together. And I'll talk to you all next week.
Now it's stripping time.
Ain't nobody got time for that.
Shut up!